Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you all for being here today. I do want to let you know that the mayor could not make it tonight. He had an unfortunate conflict, and he did want you all to know that he is praying with us tonight as well. So tonight we are doing our prayer vigil that commemorates the 4-year mark of the Marjory Stoneman Douglas tragedy. 17 lives were lost, 17 lives were hurt. 14 of those lives that were lost were students, and 3 were adult staff persons there. I know, looking at you all right now, that if you could take that day back and be a part of making it not happen, you would do that without hesitation. We all wish that we could go back to that time and make life right. But we are here tonight to say prayers and to give our love to those who aren't with us tonight. Tonight we're going to also tell you a little bit about those who have lost their lives. Each of the commission will read some of the names, and we'll share with you a little bit about them, so that we don't forget them. So if I may start off that list, we'll start off with Alyssa Alladav. She was 14 years old. Alyssa was a talented soccer player and a creative writer. Scott Vigil. Scott was 35 years old. He was a geography teacher and the school's cross-country coach. He was killed after he unlocked the door to allow students to hide from the shooter protecting them. Martin Doug Angiano. Martin was 14 years old and was a freshman. He was a very funny kid with an outgoing personality. He was a member of the JROTC and was awarded the United States Army Medal of Heroism after his death. Nicholas Duaret. Nicholas was 17 years old and was a senior. He was a swimmer with Olympic ambitions. He had just earned an academic scholarship to the University of Indianapolis and committed to its swim team. Aaron Feiss. Aaron was 37 years old. He was the assistant football coach at the school. He died from wounds he sustained while shielding students from bullets. He died a hero. I would like to now introduce you to Commissioner Seifel. This is her idea to share these names and these memories, and so I would like for her to step up and introduce herself.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you all for being here this evening. It really is a very difficult day, one that used to be such a very happy, loving, caring, being with each other day and thinking about all the good things. It certainly has taken on a different twist nowadays. I don't know about all of you, I think we all share the same thing. Today was, and as I'm standing here now, I'm very trembly about all of it. It was such a horrible tragedy that just did not have to happen. Unfortunately, it did. So I thought it would be apropos, and I asked Vice Mayor, would it be okay for each of us then to be able to read a little something about, each of these lives that were lost, that we understand just how personal all of this was. So I'd like to start with Jamie Gutenberg. Jamie was 14 years old. Her father, Fred, said at a candlelight ceremony, "I sent her to school and she was supposed to be safe." Chris Hixson. Chris was 49 years old. He was fatally injured after he raced to the scene of the shooting, trying to help students. He was the wrestling coach and the school's athletic director. He has been described as a great man with a great sense of humor, who dearly loved his family. Luke Hoyer. Luke was 15 years old. He was just a freshman who played basketball and loved the NBA. He had a huge heart and loved his family. He was the youngest of 3 children. Cara Lofran. Cara was 14 years old. She was a member of the Drake School of Irish Dance in South Florida. Gina Montalto. Gina was 14 years old. She was a member of the school's Winter Guard marching band. Joaquin Oliver, known as Guac. Joaquin was 17 years old. He moved to the US from Venezuela at a very young age. He played recreational basketball and loved to write poetry. I'm going to now turn this over to my colleague to read the rest of the names, but I just think it's very important that we acknowledge the fact that the youngest was 14 and the oldest was only 49. I think that is very impactful. Thank you all so much for being here. My colleague, Angela Castillo.
Good evening. Lana Perry was 14 years old. She was a vibrant, determined young woman who was loved by all who knew her. She was a junior ROTC and helped with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints cleanup of the Florida Keys after Hurricane Irma. Meadow Pollock was 18 years old, a senior who planned to attend Lynn University in the fall. She was a beautiful girl inside and out. She was the youngest child in her immediate family. Helena Ramsey was 17 years old who planned to go to college after graduating. She was smart and kind-hearted and thoughtful. She had a relentless motivation towards her academic studies. She moved with her family from England at the age of 2. Alex Schachter was 14 years old. He played the trombone in the school's marching band and was described as the sweetheart of a kid who just wanted to do well and make his parents happy. Carmen Schentraub was 16 years old. She was a talented musician who wanted to become a medical researcher. She was a National Merit Scholarship semifinalist and was accepted to the University of Florida's honor program. Peter Wang was 15 years old. Peter was in study hall when the shooting began, holding a door so others could escape. United States Military Academy at West Point posthumously accepted him to the Academy for his heroic actions on February 14th, 2018. May their memory be a blessing.
Tonight we have also with us a lady who has carried this burden for 4 years. It's weighed very heavily on her, and I'd like to introduce school board member Patricia Good.
Good evening. I want to thank the City of Pembroke Pines for putting together this vigil. It really touches my heart and those of many in the community that they take the time to do this. February 14th will forever be changed for me personally, but definitely for the lives of the family members left behind. My heart breaks for them. There were 14 students that were just beginning to thrive, and 3 dedicated faculty members that lost their lives that day. Please keep those left behind in your thoughts. Give them strength, and may God bless them. Thank you.
Thank you. I would also like to introduce a woman who has given us comfort throughout this entire country. I would like to introduce Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you to the members of the City Commission, the City of Pembroke Pines. Following this community-wide tragedy that ripped a hole in all of our hearts, has really been a part of the effort to help make sure that we could come together to heal. Pembroke Pines Charter High School kids were there from the very beginning, and I remember right after the tragedy happened how engaged and involved they were in the March for Our Lives effort and in the effort to make sure that we could fight to prevent something like this from ever happening again. But sadly, it keeps happening. And 4 years ago today, our community suffered an unspeakable loss, and that's one that no community should ever be forced to bear. I remember my own youngest daughter, who was at Cypress Bay High School while the shooting was unfolding, and all those high schools went on lockdown because no one knew what was going on. And my daughter started texting me from her high school. And of course, all of the angst went whipping around high school kids whose friends know no boundaries in our community. Marjory, Stoneman, Douglas, Cypress Bay High School, Taravella, Western, all the Western Broward high schools are, really interchangeable. They play each other in sports, play against each other in competitions, and with social media today, these are kids that, unlike those of us standing in front of you that grew up and being friends across all of those miles was next to impossible with other kids. Today, these are kids that are united by so much more, and unfortunately in our community, these are kids who are united by tragedy. And as was said, 14 of the lives lost were students stolen from their families just as they embarked on their adult life. And even with time, the shock, the sorrow, and the pain is still fresh. Tonight we remember the victims, both the adults as well as the children, and console all those touched by this tragedy. But we have to reaffirm that this loss will not be in vain. We have to recommit to fighting for a future where students no longer fear the threat of gun violence. We owe it to the victims to demand meaningful action to end this epidemic of violence. Inaction is inexcusable, and I know this is a memorial service, but Joaquin, Manny Oliver today, what he did, his act of civil disobedience, the need for us all to speak out, for Parkland, for El Paso, for Pittsburgh, and all communities healing from the pain of daily gun violence, we must enact laws that create a safer and more peaceful nation. I'm tired of trying to again put into words the reason why this happened and why we failed to prevent it. I'm weary from observing a moment of silence and stopping there as if stillness and silence are the only powers at our command against the epidemic of gun violence. I'm tired because one mass slaughter is already too much, yet we suffer this hurt as a nation again and again and again. Schools, concerts, movie theaters, nightclubs, shopping malls, street corners, religious institutions. When will it stop? Enough is enough. Congress must send more than thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers don't save lives. Actions save lives. And Congress must act swiftly and responsibly and adopt sensible gun safety measures now. And that's why I reintroduced Jamie's Law. Jamie Gutenberg, as you heard, lost her life that Valentine's Day, and her father Fred vowed to do all he can to stop guns from taking more lives. Can you imagine? I was there when Fred, at the memorial service, at the vigil, that very same day, actually said that he couldn't remember whether he told Jamie he loved her before she left for school that day. I can't imagine that unbearable pain. I'm sure that he did, and I'm sure Jamie knew now that I know Fred. And by the way, these are parents that we have no business knowing, and we all wish we didn't know one another, because it would mean that life had not changed. But the bill that I introduced was named in Jamie's honor, and it attacks this problem in a holistic way, not just by addressing guns, but by addressing ammunition sales. Jamie's Law would close the ammo loophole by requiring background checks for ammunition purchases, which are already prohibited to be purchased for the same reason that guns are prohibited to be purchased by felons. And adjudicated domestic violence abusers, as well as people who are adjudicated mentally ill. And it's another piece of multifaceted approach to ending the gun violence epidemic in America. Every member of Congress is morally obligated to take immediate action to prevent these senseless gun deaths from happening. We also need universal background checks for all firearm purchases. We have to ban assault weapons, regulate large capacity magazines, and fund community violence intervention programs. Because no single measure will stop gun violence. But if we weave enough of them into our laws, these layers of protection can help stop the next Parkland. It's time that we acted with an urgency that matches the magnitude of this problem. Tonight and every night I stand alongside you and everyone affected by gun violence and pledge to continue to do all I can to end this cycle of madness that's become a scourge in our nation. Please, we need to continue to let our voices be heard collectively and singly, and please continue to speak out for those who can no longer speak for themselves. When we gather again, as we did tonight, may it be for a victory, not a vigil. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all these very comforting words that we all spoke tonight. I very much appreciate. Again, thank you all. We're now going to go ahead and turn the prayer vigil over to Pastor Keith Tokar.
Good evening, everyone. I've been asked by State Representative Robin Bartleman to share just a brief statement to you. And she says, Representative Bartleman's prayers are with the families, the victims, and community of Marjory Stoneman Douglas High. She wants all of you to know that her thoughts are here, her prayers are here, and certainly her heart is here. At this time, the Pine staff is going to pass out some candles, and they're electronic candles. And while they do, let me just make a comment. Candle power is almost unheard of today. It's candle scents that we're into. But some people around the world, the candle still is a main source of illumination. If we were to extinguish all the lights in here right now, and I were to light this one candle, you would be able to distinguish my shape at least. The more candles we lit, if all of us lit a candle, there'd be more light. Another antidote to these terrible tragedies is love. If I can be a light of love in everyone's life that I touch, I might be able to make a difference in the world. However, if all of us would also embrace being a light of love, coming alongside everyone, particularly those in the shadows, and going to them and loving them and talking to them and engaging in them. Those who have been victimized, they need loved. They need hugs. And so, as we continue tonight, let us consider that. And let us consider what kind of a light of love we are in the communities that we live in, our families, in our schools. And let love triumph over hatred. Let love triumph over violence. I'd like to introduce now Rabbi Mordecai, who's going to come and share some special sentiments with us.
Good evening. Tonight means a lot. I have a father of a few high school girls and a girl in the 8th grade. So the idea of sending your daughters to school and God forbid not coming home really strikes home. I was called a while ago from the city to come speak. And the truth is, until a few hours ago, I had no idea what to say. Because there's not much you could put into words to encapsulate the grief and the hurt and the void So I was speaking to my wife, who happens to be a high school teacher, and I want to share with you something she taught her students today. And those of you who know me from the Chamber of Commerce know I always tell a story or take something from the weekly Torah portion, because we're taught to live with the times. So give me a few moments, it'll all tie in. Hopefully it'll make a positive impact. In the Torah portion, the Bible, section of the Bible, the Jews around the world are going to read this Saturday. We read the story, how just 40 days after the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, the Jews created a golden calf. Now Moses was on the mountain for 40 days, and God's teaching Moses the Torah. And here it's day 39. The Jewish people are committing this terrible sin. And God is teaching them. God is teaching Moses, and he gives Moses the tablets to bring down to the Jewish people. So there are two very powerful lessons. Because the way I see it is, you have a person who is obviously going through a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, and he decided to do this very terrible act and hurt these very terrible people, these very precious people in a very terrible way. So lesson number one is, God didn't give up on these people, even though they were going through very bad. When you see somebody going through hurt and through pain, we can't close our eyes. When you see somebody who is having a hard time, you have to reach out to them. People who are going through a hard time, we cannot give up on them. And number two, God didn't stop teaching. We have to show that no matter what, we are going to keep on teaching. We are going to keep on giving the message of good strength, teaching our children what it means to be an upstanding individual, to look out for another person. And no matter what happens, we will show that tragedy, hurt, will not tear our communities apart. No matter where we come from, we all come from different backgrounds. We are going to show that we are going to keep teaching. And in the future, we're not going to get together, like Congressman Wasserman said. We're not going to get together for hurt. We're going to get together for joy. And we're going to dance together, shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand. And may we never know from visuals and prayers for tragic events, and only know for happy occasions.
Thank you, Rabbi. Powerful words, powerful sentiments. Again, we thank you all for coming tonight. And as we close the ceremony tonight, let's go with exactly all the thoughts and all the action steps that were mentioned here tonight, so that we can make this a safer and a better world. Those who would like to join in the benediction now, I'll invite you to bow your heads with me. Eternal God, we come to you tonight, our hearts still hurting for the families that are still grieving, particularly on this day, for the loss of their treasured loved ones. God, minister to them in a way that only you can. Bring a peace that passes understanding to them. And yet, allow this tragedy to be a wake-up call to us all, to take action, some governmental action, others spiritual action, because both are needed. We do pray for all the students, those freshmen who experience this horrible event, who will be graduating here in just a couple months. Lord, may we honor those who died by not ensconcing them in our hearts and our minds as victims. May we honor their lives by ensconcing them in our minds as beautiful people who, although had short years to share, shared abundantly in our community and with their friends and in their families and in their churches and synagogues and mosques. Lord, let us remember them for what they contributed, not for what was taken from them. Help us to go now with your blessing, your guidance, and your peace. In your most holy name we pray. Amen. Thank you. The service is ended.